I'm afraid because as it is, my Social Security is very minimal. I'm afraid that I won't be able to afford those so-called lower grocery prices that he promised. I'm afraid for others. I am afraid for the children. I am afraid for seniors who are older than me. He's the president. He's supposed to be in it for the good of the people, not for him and his oligarchs.
Hi there, everyone. It's now 5 o'clock in New York. It is a rather devastating indictment and snapshot of life in Donald Trump's America as the government shutdown and Donald Trump's policies put additional financial pressure on Americans already stretched too thin. And for those who voted for Trump, promised lower costing groceries, among other things. The USDA has announced that come Saturday, the 42 million Americans who rely on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, it's often referred to as SNAP, will be forced to go without benefits that'll run out. Trump's USDA writes in a statement this, quote, "The well has run dry." It comes after Trump cut approximately $500 million in aid for food banks earlier this year, and is not the only way that life is about to get a lot more difficult for a lot more Americans. The government shutdown and Americans out of work over the Republicans' refusal to extend Obamacare subsidies. The Washington Post is reporting that people are going to see their premiums go up 30%. The Post writes this, quote, "The higher premiums, along with the likely expiration of pandemic-era subsidies, mean millions of people will see their health insurance payments double or even triple in 2026. And if that isn't enough already, these additional financial pressures come as the New York Times reports that almost everything is about to get more expensive as companies finally start passing along the costs of Donald Trump's tariffs to the American consumer. Amid the growing hunger and affordability crisis in America, blue state governors are expressing outrage over Donald Trump's lack of action.
We are fast-tracking an $80 million investment. We're front-loading it to get them to food banks. I'm very worried about 5 million people in a matter of days losing food stamp, losing their SNAP benefits, and entering in a grocery store with Donald Trump's tariffs and inflation.
They're paying contractors to tear down the East Wing, but they're not putting money into the food bank that they're setting on. So if there's a sense of frustration in America, it's very real. They are choosing not to fund these programs. They are choosing to prioritize. And when the White House press secretary said the top priority is the ballroom, we could not disagree more. Our top priority is the well-being of the Minnesotans, especially around food security.
To Governor Walz's point about priorities, that $300 million that Donald Trump is spending on making a gold ballroom where the East Wing once stood, and the $230 million he's trying to get us, the American taxpayers, to reimburse him for being under criminal investigation, they add up to roughly the same amount of money he has cut from America's food banks. It's where we start the hour. Some of our favorite experts and friends. David Frum is back. He's a staff writer at The Atlantic, host of the video podcast, The David Frum Show. Also joining us, MSNBC political analyst, host of the Bulwark podcast, Tim Miller's here. And joining me at the table, Princeton University professor, MSNBC political analyst, Eddie Glaude. Eddie, it's a deeply disturbing portrait of America right now. The images of Donald Trump destroying with an actual wrecking ball, the actual East Wing of the White House, while Americans are about to go without food stamps, is a snapshot of America that'll live forever. Mm-hmm. It is awful when anyone in America goes hungry, and it is a choice. It's Donald Trump's choice. Do you think that we are at a fever snapping moment, or do you see this moment on a continuum?
It varies. I think, first of all, you're absolutely right that it's a choice. Some days I see it as a kind of inflection point. Other days I see it as a continuum. We've always talked about this tension within the Trump kind of coalition between the Elon Musk wing and the Steve Bannon wing. Mm-hmm. And when he was having his little tiff with Musk, we were like, who's going to win out? But this is the Bannon side. This is the populist side. The fact that people who are going to have difficulty putting food on the table, folk who have the view that billionaires have overtaken or overrun the government, they are going to see Trump in relation to that kind of complaint, as it seems to me. So I think this is an inflection point within his coalition. But we have made the choice consistently to be the richest country in the history of the world to have some of our citizens not eat.
Tim, we were just talking about Steve Bannon with John Karl, who has a great new book out. And there's an anecdote about his influence ahead of the meeting with Zelensky. But I think if you look at the policy debacle, his influence is nowhere to be seen in the flagrant extravagance of the crypto corruption, the flagrant extravagance of the gold-leafed Oval Office, the flagrant extravagance of a Russian-style ballroom, the herding, he used to call them the MAGAs, you know, the MAGAs who are on Medicaid, I think he's talked about on his podcast. I mean, he's going about 0-4-10 if you look at all the policies that'll hurt the parts of the coalition he used to publicly speak out for. Who is disinterested? Or I guess, is this all Donald Trump? I mean, what is your theory about how we got to this point right now?
My theory about how we got to this point right now is that Donald Trump is responsive to anybody that will suck up to him. And in the second term, the richest, most powerful people in the country have decided that they're going to suck up to him in the way that they didn't the first time. And so you can see this in foreign policy or in domestic policy. And so when you have Bannon, for all of my complaints about him, or of anybody's complaints about him, like he was the one who was saying this year during the tax bill that they should include a tax on the tax increase on the richest Americans. He was advocating for that publicly and privately, as best I can tell. They didn't do that. You know, the MAGA movement, I'll add one element to your list, was talking in 2016 about draining the swamp and going after these special interests in D.C. That was a lot of that was always smoke and mirrors, but it's particularly so this time. When you look at this ballroom, who is funding it? It's the most entrenched interests in Washington. It's the military-industrial complex. It's the big tech CEOs, right? It's the big companies. All of these companies that were not going to donate to Donald Trump after January 6th, not going to donate to any Republicans after January 6th, have now all bent the knee. And what is revealed is that Donald Trump wasn't actually interested in fighting the status quo, wasn't actually interested in fighting for the forgotten man. What he was interested in was like respect for himself. It was a Rodney Dangerfield thing. And now that all the richest people in the world have said, okay, yes, sir, Mr. President, sir, I'm going to bring you this trophy like Tim Cook did, he no longer is interested in fighting them. And so, I do think that's a real, obviously, change away from kind of the pure id of what we saw from MAGA in 2016.
You know, David, from food insecurity it's a weird thing. It's wrapped up in probably the only crisis maybe a person could endure with more shame interbreeded or interconnected is some sort of domestic abuse. But food insecurity is people with cars and jobs who can't afford food for their families. And so they show up at food banks. Sometimes if shame is a hurdle, a food bank will open early or late to let a family come in and shop off the shelves. Food banks are a bridge sometimes to keep families through job insecurity, maybe not someone totally out of work, but not with steady jobs. Sometimes military families show up at food banks, especially when their salaries don't come through. Food insecurity in America is a lot more common than anybody can imagine, and it knows no party affiliation. It does not care who you voted for. And the fact that Trump and all the Republicans in Congress are opting into this tragedy, this sort of shameful thing in America in 2025 should be front page news all over the place. What is your sense of the degree of numbness in our country right now?
I don't think Americans are numb. There's a hostage taking going on, and the hostages certainly pay attention to it. I'm speaking to you from Toronto. I flew here via Dulles Airport. On my way out of Dulles Airport, I got into conversation with the person who was checking the computer and shampoo in my carry-on bag, and he talked to me about his feeling, about his fear that his salary would be stopped and that he and his family would be under pressure. Now, I assume we're paying much more than living wage to that kind of skilled worker, but he's worried. Everyone's worried. The tens of millions of people are worried. And here's why the worries will only intensify. In the 30 years since in the past 30 plus years, there have been major shutdowns in 1994, 2013, one over the winter of 2018, 2019, and now this one. This is now the second longest, on its way to being probably in the end the longest. In all those previous cases, the shutdowns were about many, many different issues they were tests of strength. Who's more popular? They often happen quite close to a recent election. And there's a test of strength. Who's got the upper hand? But there's always kind of an exit ramp. So in 1994, when Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton faced off, the exit ramp was Medicare. Basically the Republicans climbed down. Bill Clinton got a win. Exit ramp. In 2018, 2019, the exit ramp was Donald Trump's demand for a border wall, $5 billion for a border wall. He eventually dropped that demand. Exit ramp. Where's the exit ramp now? Yes, this fight is about the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, but there's a bigger problem, which is what this fight really, I think, is about is the Constitution awards Congress power over taxing and spending. And Donald Trump has challenged that power in a very fundamental way. He is taxing without Congress, $30+ billion a month in tariff revenue, and he is spending without Congress. Mm-hmm. He is getting other forms of revenue than taxes. The reason the White House ballroom story is so important, it's not just the vandalism of an historical monument, it's not just the gaudy bad taste of this ballroom, is that it is being funded not by taxes, but by gifts from people who have business before the government. So he's bypassing Congress as a source of revenue, and he's bypassing Congress's control of spending, and he's claiming the authority to refuse to spend money that Congress has appropriated and that he signed. So how do you do business with someone like that who says, okay, we need to make a deal, but I just want you to understand before we sit down to this deal, whatever deal we agree, it doesn't bind me, it only binds you. How do you do business with that person?